Welcome to another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Wally. And today I am so excited to have on a 40-year-old from Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. His hockey journey has taken him to Canada, USA, Italy, England, and Wales, a staple of the Cowichan Valley Capitals, a fan favorite of the Sheffield Steelers and Cardiff Devils, or used to be, two-time playoff and one league title as a player. As a coach, four-time conference champ and EIHL Coach of the Year in 14-15. And he is now the GM, head coach of the Manchester Storm. And if my math is correct, has been a head coach now for 11 pro hockey seasons. And he's only 40, folks. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan Finnerty.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for making the time for me. And I guess we get into how we know each other, and like you just mentioned off camera, is I've had a few of your former players on. Are you there? Did you just cut out?
I don't know. Is it you or me? Either way, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, no, it looked like you cut out there a bit, but anyways, you had you coached Levitt, Frankie, and currently Zach Sullivan too, right?
Yeah.
Frankie had a question for you. Did you hear it on the pod? Because he said
he said that
he said you took away beers from the old boys.
I heard that, and I don't remember doing it. I mean, it would have been like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like something I would have done. But I mean,
pressure gets pretty tense at the end of those seasons.
You know what Frankie's like, though? I mean, if Frankie, if there wasn't maybe a beer for Frankie because somebody double dipped, then the whole world has to hear about it.
Mm-hmm. But bit of a whiner, you could say, right?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, what year would that have been?
That was the year I played in the UK. So that was 14-15 when you were the coach of the year that year, I said. Because that was the year you guys were ahead of us right at the end. That was like my only year I actually played in the UK. Okay. I was with Cardiff, and we all finished right around the same, but Sheffield beat us by 2, I think, or 3.
I think they beat us by 1.
Okay. Right. It sucked.
So, yeah, it was Salt. So we had Keither and Mizey. No, Mizey wasn't there. Salts was on that team.
Yeah.
We may have to ask those guys, because I can't. I heard him say it. I can't for the life of me come in and be like, no more beers after wins. It just doesn't seem right. But if it's true, then yeah, I'm completely to blame. I'll put my hand up. I can turn back the clock.
So in the UK, do you still get beers after games?
Not as much. I think they've kind of moved away from that. The old, when you want to get rid of the beer league, it's probably a good idea to get rid of the
beers.
Beers might be a good starting point. I don't know if we've completely figured it out, but it's on the table for discussion now. But yeah, I mean, it's still. I think there's still teams that throw a case of beer around.
I think they should. I think that's what brings teams together. I think if the weekend's over, I think you definitely should have minimum a case of beer if you win. That's just my thoughts on hockey.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, there's 25 guys on the bus, so a case of beer is, half one each. So, but yeah, no. I mean, like I said, I mean, I think nowadays we've even from back then, we've even the buses now, like the coaches, they call it, they're so much more advanced now. They got bridges and compartments all over the place, these double-decker buses. So I know our bus driver makes sure that, if we have a winning weekend, the guys can enjoy their trip back on a Sunday, and we're never short anyways on our bus if we get a win, which is a little bit of incentive for the guys when you're on a Sunday night trip in Fife and you got a 5-hour journey back.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's the way hockey should be. I think that it brings teams together too. I think if you sit on a bus with a couple beers each and you're playing cards, it's just everybody is just having a little bit more fun than if you're sitting there drinking a protein shake and foam rolling, eh?
I get it. I'm with you on that one, and there's still that old school thought. But yeah, I know 100%, especially, in the time and place, you got to let the guys run. I'm a pretty big believer in that. I think with my groups, we've always kind of had that, we're not here to babysit. I got 2 kids of my own. I'm not babysitting. If you want to, you're a professional hockey player. I mean, if you want to take the risk and run the red lights and, I'd imagine it's short lived. If you want to just hit the green lights hard, which I would advise, that, that's where you go. You get a lot of green lights, and you miss one, you got to wait your turn. But yeah, we had a lot of groups. I mean, my first year in Manchester, we had a really good group, and it just seemed like if they were going out, it was like 18 of them going out, and
Oh, that's the best.
and fans don't want to hear it, but or maybe supporters, but every club I've ever had, that every team I've had success on, I probably didn't know the half of what was going on behind my back, and the ones I did know, I thought, geez, that's probably the line right there, and but you show up, the guys work, they come to work for you, they play hard for you.
And I couldn't agree more when it comes to it. And one thing this is our first time talking for the folks that don't know that, but like when I went to Brayhead with Cardiff and Frankie and Salts and like was it Stefan Meyer and those guys were all on the team. Like you can tell when you're around the arena, you can tell when guys come out after a game which teams are really teams, which teams the guys really get along, their family, the wives are all getting along. Like I noticed it in a weekend in Brayhead. I was like, wow, this team, like they're together, right? They were all hanging out, all the wives were together, all the guys come out of the room together. And you could just see everybody was happy, everybody was having fun together. And I guess that kind of reflects on the head coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got a good story about that, because I mean, that group we had, I mean, that group we had in Glasgow, I had 4 good years there. We had great guys on every team, and just different, right? Every team's different from the last, and people, it's hard to keep the core, especially if you're not at the top of the budget where you can just pay and pay and pay and pay to keep guys that you want. You lose guys, you lose guys too within the league, especially now. A guy's a great season. He's in the window. I can't keep him Sheffield or Cardiff or Nottingham. If they want him, I just can't match it. I can't do it. So when you get these groups, you're always kind of trying to replicate them, but not with the same guy. You're like, well, I lost him, but I think this is going to be a good fit. And it never works like that. Every guy now is so different, and the group dynamic is not something that you can master. You can't pinpoint it. You can't just go, hey, I'm going to find person A and person B, and that worked like 2 years ago. And Matt, you remember how it doesn't fucking work like that anymore. Like,
yeah,
you gotta get lucky. Like with recruitment at this level, you have to get so lucky, because one, it's you want to get the best player for the money that you're paying, and then two, you want to make sure that you're getting the more importantly, the best person for the money that you're paying. And oh no, my daughter's just snuck up.
oh, she can say hi.
You want to come say hi?
Yeah.
We're just talking about the boys drinking some beers.
What's
Say
your
hi.
name?
Hi.
Hi.
This is Novalee, but Novi. We just turned 4.
From which party?
Yeah, you had a birthday party. Yeah.
I'm in Canada. Where are you?
You in Manchester?
Nah.
No? Okay. Okay, go find your mom though, okay?
I'll try not to keep that too long.
All right, hang on. I may have to take a time out. We got the newborn, so it's a little chaos here.
Oh, no worries. We can always hit. Do you have to take a pause now?
I just want to get her downstairs. Otherwise, we'll just hear this.
It's all good. It's all part of the show. We don't edit anything on this one. It's good though. And then it gives me time to look at my notes again. Because I just thought of another way I know you.
I think we played against each other. Okay, hang on. I'm just going to take her down. Come on.
Yeah, no worries. So the other way that I know Finner is Deeth was no longer with the Cardiff Devils, and he was looking for an equipment manager's job, and I wrote the reference letter for Finner, and he ended up hiring episode 20 something Deeth. Did you know that I wrote the reference letter about Deeth?
Where's that for us?
Yeah, when he came to you guys. If you would have read it, a reference letter, I was the one that wrote it.
Is that right, eh? With equipment guys in the UK, you're kind of just happy to get one, so you don't dig too far into the resumes. But he was great, man. He was good for us.
He brings he chirps the boys just as much as any of the players, right?
He's got a bit of an aura around him, but you know what? Like, he's a goofy bastard, but he's really, really, really good at what he does. And he's like,
Passionate.
We got a really good guy now, a young kid that we've kind of molded, and you know, I mean, if you get a bad equipment guy, you can wreck the whole group. You know, if you got a
Guy that's complaining and negative and like,
yeah,
why do I have to do this for you? And yep.
if you get a bad equipment guy, man, he can really disturb the whole group. And you know, and likewise when you get a good one, you try to keep him. But like I said, I mean, Dees is now in Austria, and you know, I think he could probably move on from there. Like he did a great job for us and came in, filled the gap, and then left us. So I had to recruit an equipment guy and a team. So
Well, so at least my reference letter came in handy though, if you actually used it or
yeah,
if you read it.
I'll try to I'll swing around, see if he even sent it across. I don't think he sent a resume over.
Oh,
But
geez. Well, he made it sound like a big deal, but whatever. Yeah, and then the other way we know each other somewhat or have a link is we both played for the Cardiff Devils at one point.
yeah,
You were a different era than me. Were you on the team that broke the Guinness Book of World Records thing?
we did. Yeah. I was there. I went there for half a year under Jared Adams, and then came back the second season where we literally won nothing, but felt like we won everything. Man, we went to the final. I think we tied on points and lost. I can't remember if we tied for the league on points, but had one less win. We
Oh,
lost the Challenge Cup final. We lost in the playoff final. Like it was like,
but you
yeah,
were good all year and you were having fun all year.
we were. Yeah, I mean that was a lot of fun that year. That was another team. Like when I look back, and now I kind of took that into my coaching. Like even G to this day doesn't probably know half of like what we got up to.
Yeah.
But we were winning and we were just rolling. Like we used to go. Right, G knows this story. So we lived in Pontcanna,
Yep.
and you know the George brothers.
Oh, yeah, they've been on the show.
Yeah, well, yeah, they've been everywhere. And there was this. We all kind of lived in this. My memory.
Oh my gosh, are you the one that they switched your house around on you?
Yeah.
They told that story on here. That was you. Eh? I
Okay.
forgot who it was. That was you.
Wasn't that night though. Um, yeah, they did the whole like MTV Cribs thing, but like my upstairs was downstairs, my downstairs was upstairs, and then it stayed like that because there was like four of them moving it. So then at one point I'm like, hey, I'm actually okay with this. Like I don't mind this.
We're just gonna have to live through this now. Eh?
And then like Christmas was coming and family was coming. I'm like, hey, you guys think you can maybe come help me move this back? Like it was a week or two, but the story was that we went for on a Friday night, and this was when because we won was it 20 I don't know 21 or 20 something games in a row. So that's like roughly 10 weeks, right, of winning.
Yeah.
So we're 2.5 months on a run. So I can't if it was Vother, myself, and maybe John Pele. Where there was a little pub called the Cameo Club, and it was like a members only club that somebody got us in anyway. Somebody gave us some memberships, and it was really like they spoke Welsh, and it was like quite high end. It was like an old rugby hangout, right? Like all the old rugby guys would go there, and it was a real classy joint. And we went there for a beer on a Friday, and it was like two or three of us, and then we had maybe bought a round each, beer or two each, and then we shut her down. And then we won both games on the weekend, so we associated with the beers on Friday. Well, so the next week we had four guys, and then anyways by probably week four we had about 15 guys, which means we were having about 15 pints. Like it was just like we were flying, and it was like, and then we'd win again, and then it was like G would be in the room, the boys would be in like Cameo Friday, book it, and more and more and more and more, and then it just went on and on and on, like it just, and then yeah, and
And you're just on a run, and you're drinking on the weekends, you're winning on the weekends, and the boys are just loving life.
I remember we would go and we didn't even want to go because we were so afraid of breaking the curse because we associated the winning to going to the Cameo on a Friday night.
I don't know the Cameo Club. I don't know if that was still around when I was there. But nobody lived in Pontcanna. That was just where the dentist was.
Yeah, it wasn't far from there. Yeah, and that story we told G, and he had no idea. I mean, it wasn't like it it's always sounds worse than it is, you know, guys.
No, you're right though. It always does sound worse than it is because everybody's always ready to play, and like
Yeah,
you're always in bed at a decent time when you
but
everybody holds each other accountable. That if you were there having a few beers, you better be ready to rock, right? You're not going to be the one holding us back. Farm Girl, Blueberry Wheat, seasonal beer, Bayfield Brewing Company.
shout out to the sponsors. Yeah. Yeah. It always sounds worse to like when you're telling these stories, like, you know, some guys will come have one. Some guys just showed up just to be a part of it, but it was
Well,
a
that's
lot
what
of
you
fun.
need, right? You need the
Yeah,
guys that don't drink and don't want to party like everybody else. You still got to show up and be part of it, right?
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. So it was a lot of fun. And the George brothers, they were like pretty much on the team that year.
They were
Um,
when I was there, man. That's why I have
yeah,
them on a podcast. They went ski trips with us. They were like our brothers, man. They came on the ice to celebrate with us too.
they ever tell the story? They went to Belfast and we gave them tracksuits. So they gave them like team tracksuits and they went to Belfast and you know like back then I think you'd fly in or you know you flew in. Sometimes you'd fly in maybe like at 1 o'clock and you kind of were kicking rocks for 3 or 4 hours before you went to the game. Like you didn't check into the hotel or whatever. It was one. Any I can't remember the whole how the whole setup was, but you know they have the Odyssey and they got like the like where the hockey bar is and all that, and then they got a bowling alley. I don't know if you ever seen. There's a bowling
It's
alley.
upstairs, right?
Yeah, something like that. And so the George brothers were in their tracksuits, like full decked out team tracksuits, drinking beers and bowling. And there's like Giants fans, like, oh my god,
The players are just drinking and bowling.
yeah, these guys are like drinking before the game. Like, what? And it was like, it was a George, and we are like, what's, G's like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, you kidding me? And it was the George brothers crushing beers at like 2 or 3 o'clock on a game day, full track, full everything, looking like they're ready to go from there to the game.
They are legends of hockey in Cardiff in the UK. Like they literally were part of the team when I was there, and you were playing for Cardiff. I guess that would have been like what, almost 5 years before or something. Like that's wild
Yeah,
that they just. But they are the biggest beauties I've met.
oh, they're unreal. Steve was like the first guy I met. Bother. He was working in downtown in Cardiff. I can't remember. He was working at a clothing store, and he was like the first guy I met. And he was dressed up. You know, like he's always like he's got his like 9-piece suit on, and he's like,
They look
and
fantastic. Yeah.
I was like, what is this guy? And I was just kind of like, and it was Bother's like buddy, and I was thinking like, who is that? What's this guy's deal? And then he's like over, and then you get to meet their friends. Their friends are like Boring Mike, and they all have like all these names.
Fat
And
Allen. Yeah.
Fat Allen, who's like 130 pounds. Like it was just, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Then
I
you
really
get
had
him
a
on
lot
a dance floor too, right? You get Steve on a dance
of fun.
floor on a mic, and it just changes everything.
Yeah. No, we had, but Sunday nights we'd always hit O'Neill's after games.
Yeah,
It was,
that's how my Cardiff Devils career started. Was O'Neill's was at the start of the season, and it was a great spot to hit after a game right downtown, and then everybody meets there right after the game, and then everybody kind of scatters from there.
yeah. There's S&M. I don't know if they're around. They're a band, and they used to support the guys, but they're like two guys, just like, and they could literally sing any song. Like these guys could go to Vegas and you like do a show there. They're so literally you call it a song and they can do it. You know. Um,
That's the part about Cardiff I loved. It was there was so much to do. Like I had been in Denmark and Sunderjyski, and there was nothing to do in Voyance, Denmark, like nothing. And then I get to Cardiff or the UK league where there's a lot of imports that are Canadian, and the British guys are all like Canadians. We all have the same kind of mentality and like culture, and it was such a great way to finish my career was going to the UK and being around all that atmosphere.
yeah, you did your masters too, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think when I called Frank the Tank to get like his review on the teams and the league and everything, I actually think he said he was going to talk to you about me when I ended up signing with Cardiff. But it was between Cardiff and Sheffield, and then I think he talked to you briefly, but you guys had already given out your school deal or something. Did you
Yeah,
had school up there, right?
we had school in Sheffield when I was
No,
there.
in Brayhead.
Yeah, I think we had one. I think we only ever had one
Yeah, and I
spot.
think you had given it away, and that's why we
Yeah,
never really talked.
there was never a good school deal there. It was always like, yeah, it was like an hour away. It was never like we have
And
a great one in Salt. It was just never, yeah, it was never really that great of a deal.
And it does give teams a leg up, when they can get players into school, because that's what recruits players, right? The guys that want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, even today, I mean, the league's got a lot younger. But I think guys are actually, like coming over and doing a 1 year thing, even in mid-20s, and just like, let's just get out of the way and then go play for 3 or 4 years, work on, networking back home. And, yeah, I'm a major advocate. I wish I had 20. I wish I had 20 of them. I wish I could put all my British guys, because the Brits here too, like we got to get these guys in school. They can't play EIHL hockey their whole life and then go, what's next? So we got a lot of young guys, and we're really trying to get our university to open up some programs and send our kids in, because these young kids got to go to school. Like, guys got to get educated. And
You got to be ready for the next chapter, right?
it's a shitty world when you walk into the next step and you're not quite sure what it is you want to do, and you're just gonna dip your toe in, because you quickly realize once you're not a hockey player, nobody gives a shit about you anymore.
Not a shit. No. Except for me, folks. Except for me and my shed. I care about all of you.
There you go. There you go.
And I'll talk to every one of you. One of my buddies that came on had some nice messages from former teammates, and he said, "Man, Wally, your pod's like therapy for the boys." And I was like, "Hey, man, I'm here for the people. I'm here for you." Yeah, because I love it. This shit is so fun.
It's fun. I mean, it's fun for coaches that can kind of just, because obviously you hold yourself a little, you know what I mean? You got to watch what you say, and you can't, so it's kind of fun for a coach to come on and talk about the good old days, and, realize that you actually are fairly normal, and you're not just a,
You're not just the dickhead coach now.
Yeah.
Taking away beers on Frankie.
Yeah, exactly. I think every coach kind of walks in and goes, "Fuck, what people think of me is so far from who I am," and your wife's, and your family, and but I mean, they see you, they get a short window, and they see you. Other teams hate you because you're the opposing coach, and I've been in the league for so long that the guys remember when I played, and so yeah, it's funny that you kind of meet these guys and they just fucking hate you, and you're like, I don't know you. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why you're so mad at me.
Why do you hate me so much?
Yeah, but I mean, the elite league's awesome. The fans are great. Like, I just don't think there's another league in the world where there's so much passion for the players. Like for the players, it's like an individual, not just on ice. Like, they actually give a shit about your family, and they give a shit about like your future, and you know what I mean? Like, you don't get that everywhere. You go to Slovakia and they just want to make sure that you play your best. If you don't, then they tell you to fuck off, and they don't give a shit about you. And a lot of them, the meat market here, the UK, like the real, like, the fans get into it. They want to know everything about you. They want to know where you're from, what your mom and dad are, like they're so entwined in like your life for that short little span. And then if you are lucky enough to go back to good organizations, it just grows and grows and grows.
I can't believe I haven't heard that on this podcast yet, but that is so well put. That is exactly how it was. Well, I was in Germany for 6 years, and like, you might have like a couple that's a sponsor, that's your friends, but like, the fans aren't your friends. They don't care about you. They're going to whistle at you as soon as you turn the puck over, and they're going to be screaming. And like, if you'd have a few bad games and the team's losing, you'd see some fans and they'd look at you, their face would be bright red. Like, and you could tell they almost hated you because you were losing. And then you come to Cardiff, and like, you're having a kid, and they want to know everything about how it went. They're asking your wife, they're asking, your parents come over, and they're on the back of the fan bus with the fans, and they get to know everybody, and they stay in contact for months later, right? Like, it was a completely different experience. And I think it's the culture, and the language barrier too helps, but just the way the fans are in the UK is definitely it's a gem of a league to play in, and it changed my life. And I guess that's why you have a podcast, right? Is because people do care. And when I start talking to people in my shed, all of a sudden I'm the number one podcast in the UK. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I know you're killing it. It's awesome. It's fun I mean, I've listened to, you kind of tune in and listen to, like, especially guys that I've coached and guys that I know. There's quite a few. I didn't realize how many you've done.
Yeah.
That was holy. But
I'm only gonna pick up speed too. I feel like I've been a little bit lazy. I feel like I can get creative and slip in a few more because everybody wants to come on.
I feel like there's some guys out there that should be sponsoring here. Some UK companies that will want to get involved.
You would think so, folks. The demographic is about 28 to 44-year-old males, and there's a lot of them listening, folks, and 60% in the UK, I think. And it's only been listened to in 40 countries, though, so I'm sure it wouldn't get your business out there at all. Right, Bayfield Brewing Company? Anyways, we haven't even got into your career, so this is going to be tough. We're going to skip a bunch of stuff, but what I'm curious is because you're an advocate on school. You played 20 games in the WHL after Lethbridge, which I wanted to get into, but whatever. We don't have that much time. Okay. So you gave up your scholarship opportunities. You, by the looks of things, you played about 20 games and then you just dominated like junior tier 2 junior A, and those guys would have got scholarships, but I guess you had already played a bit.
Yeah, so I kind of learned the hard way. So I mean, you grew up in Lethbridge, so it was like Lethbridge Hurricanes, Medicine Hat Tigers, and the junior A guys were it was unheard of to go to junior A. I mean, it was not ever whispered that you would go to junior A, and junior A almost meant it was almost like you were second, right? It was like second fiddle. Like I don't want to play junior A hockey. And the Alberta Junior League back then was it was not great, right? The BC Junior was always the premier one, and the Alberta Junior was a little bit bush league.
And then there was Saskatchewan too, right?
Yeah, and then Saski next door, which was just the same thing, just a little bit colder. So but looking back, it was one of my biggest regrets, right? I wish I would have just gone to the BC Junior, done my thing, got a scholarship. I mean, but but I didn't really develop as like a player. Like I was just small, didn't skate that well, didn't do really anything that well, and a really average player till I was about like 19, and then I learned how to skate. I don't know, like I 18, 19, I kind of I did that skating treadmill that really worked for me in that Lindsay Park, and I did that. I just don't like it. Yeah, but it actually helped me. It helped me with like foot speed, right? Because I had a good stride, but I didn't have foot speed, and then I kind of got anyway. So my last 2 years in junior, but I'd already blown my eligibility, but I landed in some really good spots, and like I played for this in Surrey my last year. I had an opportunity to go play for the Hurricanes, and I was captain in Surrey, and Mark Hollick was the coach, and I loved playing for him. The owner was a guy from California named Bruce Riley, and he treated us like gold, like I mean, unreal. And I just couldn't leave, and I didn't really know if I was going to go like Canadian University or if I was going to go pro. I was just kind of just trying to get just keep playing and winning and doing my thing, and I was getting taken care of really. The first time you start kind of getting taken care of as a hockey player, it feels good, right? And you're only 19, 20, but and then there was I did my SATs because there was some talk about eliminating games if you were under 18. Like if you played when you were 16, there was some talk at the NCAA trying to eliminate if you played under 50 games. So I was talking to a lot of schools, and they made me do my SATs in case this rule came in. In hindsight, I probably should have redshirted now. I should have just redshirted.
Sat out a year and got the school.
Yeah, because I mean, I was top 5 or I don't know, whatever, in the scored 40 goal. Like everybody gets big scholarship. It was like guys that are like on your third line going full rides, and you're like, what?
Yeah, no, I know. And when I saw that and I saw you'd given up your eligibility, I was like, geez, like look at the numbers he's putting up. Like he would have been going anywhere. But because I am the guy with the podcast in my shed, I'm going to give you why that happened. Player review time. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen you play hockey before, but when you were younger, you weren't big enough and tough enough to play the role you ended up playing. You had to grow into getting bigger and stronger, and you ended up being a guy that could fight, score, and you were just a leader. You did everything the team wanted, but you weren't big enough to do that until you were 19. So you'd already given up your eligibility. Then you grow into the player you become in pro, and it's too late because of that, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I went from tier 2, and then I went to Peoria on the coast. I thought I was just going to go to camp there and then see maybe then I'll go back and play university hockey, and stayed there and then stayed there for 2 years, and then that was it, right? I went in, my first year we were with St. Louis. That was the affiliate team in Worcester, and there was a ton of guys going up and down and yeah. And
well, to get from junior A to right to the coast, like that's showing you're passing a lot of guys that were playing major junior, right?
You remember Randy Rowe? You remember him?
like leading scorer in like the O,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah. So Rosie. So I came from tier 2, and Rosie came from Belleville, where he just scored 60 plus goals, and we were like the number 10, like that. It was me one day, it was him the other day, but because I would fight, I was more applicable to that role. And Rosie took a little longer. Now Rosie went on and did his thing and climbed, but Rosie was more of a top 6 guy, like he needed to play to get him the puck. Sitting as a 10th forward wasn't exactly his, he got minimal minutes and didn't do a lot with it. So it took us both a little while to get going. And obviously our careers just kind of, we took off. We all spent a couple of years in Peoria, and then we just left there. And kind of went our own way.
I saw your second year was even better than your first, but I had it written down here. You were getting that's why I have my player review is you rookie year, like you said, you're easing into it. You're getting into the pro game, but then your second year, you're scoring goals, you're getting penalty minutes. So I guess you're fighting. And then, so you just start working your way up the lineup, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was tough by association for that level. I mean, we had Jeremy Yablonski, Trevor Gillies, Brad Both, Trevor Baker, Anthony Belza. If you look him up, I mean, we had like 8 legit heavies.
This was in the coast.
This was in the coast, yeah. And but the problem, that's why my penalty minutes were so high, is that I was like the 3-legged dog to the other guys. They're like, well, I'm not going to fucking fight that guy. I'm like, who else? Yep, I'll get my points off that guy. So I'm like, guys are like, I remember Terry Ryan, and I'm like, why the fuck you guys fucking fight the heavies? 9 of them over there. And then sure enough, here you go. Like back then, it was a little bit like the rodeo. Like if they're like, they don't ask you, they're like, hey, we're going to go. And you're like,
and then all of a sudden you're going, and you better be ready to go.
Even if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I ended up I was like, there's so many tough guys, but guys just don't want to have anything to do with them, but they know they need to do something to stay on the team, so they just
so they got to fight someone. Yeah.
They gotta go. Yeah.
I remember being very selective when I chose a guy in the AHL.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it was a great experience, and then
so you were there, you were with Peoria, and that's the St. Louis organization, for 2 years, but then you leave there and head to the Central Hockey League and San Angelo Saints.
Yeah, so that's kind of the one. I mean, it was an awesome year. Again, I was the first year I was captain in pro. We were kind of dejected because we had really good teams in Peoria, but there's no call-ups. I mean, nobody got called up. I mean, Johnstown guys had 95 free agent call-ups, and we had 4. So everybody was kind of pissed off. And I mean, there's probably could go into at the East Coast League level, there's coaches that are there for themselves, and then there's coaches that are there for the boys that want to get them up.
It is amazing. And I know when I was in the coast, not Clancy, the guy I always talk about, but the other guy, he held people back that were on East Coast deals that could have got called up to AHL places because he needed them. And these are guys that this is their professional career. They're working their whole lives to get that chance in the AHL, and you're not giving it to them. Yeah. I thought that was a big load of horse manure.
We had one, and it's a great story. Trevor Gillies, we picked him up off waivers.
I know him and his younger brother. They're from Cambridge, right?
I played with Nate in Sheffield. So I played both the Gillies, I guess, but we picked Trevor up off waivers, and everybody knows Trevor Gillies now. And my roommate was a guy named Brett DeCecco. And if you want to look him up, he was another 58 WHL Bowl guy, stud, 6th rounder to Buffalo. And Czech's got a concussion, so he was out. Trevor's agent said, hey, phoned him one day. He said, what's going on? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, can't remember. Somebody's trying to call you up. I can't remember who. Springfield. Okay. And he's like, I have no idea. What do you mean? And anyway, so Trevor's like, I don't know. He's like, well, they need a fucking heavy. They need you tonight. What, are you hurt? And then he's like, no, I'm fine. He's like, well, your coach is saying you're hurt. So he goes into the coach's office, and Gillies is pretty intimidating.
Yep.
Especially when he's heated. Anyways, they get into this fuck you. He basically says, hey, if you go, don't come back. Well, guess what? Gillies never came back to the coast again for 15 years till he went to Charleston. And my buddy DeCecco, my roommate, picks him up, drives him to Chicago, and he's like, "Hey, if you make it, you better remember me." And he actually went all the way to the Islanders, man. His trajectory just went.
And his coach would have shut the whole thing down.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't have if he would have been like, "Oh, okay, I'll wait for the next one or when it's when it's better suited for you." In Peoria. But so yeah, it's kind of like, I think that story turned a lot of guys away from staying there, because you go to the coast to get to the American League. That's it. That's it. That's all you want.
That's the only, yeah.
You just want your chance. And then we had an old guy named Derek Booth on the team, and Ray Edwards, the assistant with do you know Eddie?
I don't think so.
No, he's assistant with the Flames right now. Coached San Antonio for years. Another awesome coach. He got this job in San Angelo, Texas, in the Central League. And I remember, like, I will never play in the Central League. I'll never play for the United League. I ain't no chance. No. I also said that about the EIHL too. And
me too.
Yeah, and then anyways, he got us to go there. I think we went to camp in Milwaukee. Chris Menard was there, so it was me and Minnie. We lived like next to each other. We played on the same line that year, and it was awesome. We had a great experience. We didn't get up. Neither of us got to the American League. We all thought we were. And we had this like low budget team in the middle of, I don't even know where it is, West Texas. I mean, great golf courses, great coach, old school like rodeo arena. And it was like, honestly, man, it was like you live in, this is the real Texas. Like, you have to take like 15 interstates off the one to get here. Like, there's,
I've never been out there. I can't even really picture it other than
awesome, man. It was awesome. Yeah, I loved it. We got taken care of well, got paid pretty well. And yeah, we went there for a year, and then Minnie went to Alaska and I went to Victoria, which was a mistake looking back, but it was like I had to go back to like my hometown kind of thing
because you had the option. That's what I was curious about. You went to the Central League for 1 year, and then you still do play 2 more seasons in the coast, which is Victoria. So that's coming back kind of home. So how close are you to home there?
So how that worked out is I kind of like signed a deal. I mean, that year that was the expansion year for Victoria. And of course, I played in Cowichan, which is on Vancouver Island. So I was like, I love Vancouver Island.
And that's where Chris Frank played too, right?
Yeah. So I loved the island. I was always going to get back. I bought my first house there like when I was like 23 or 4, and I rented it out for years. But I played in Vic, and it was an expansion team. That was the first year in the East Coast League. My coach was Brian Maxwell, who used to coach the Hurricanes, and we had a long history from Lethbridge. And at Christmas time, he gave me this offer. He said, "Hey, I want you to come play, and this is what we can afford to pay, yada yada," which was like double my salary. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. Anywho, it was the biggest gong show you could imagine, man. Like we didn't even have enough guys for training camp. We lost. I mean, I went from like losing 20, like setting a record for most losses, to setting a record for most wins. Like, it was our arena that they built was like, we showed up and like the just the outside structure was done. Like, there's nothing, and we're like 3 weeks away from skating, and they're like, "Yeah, no, we got some guys coming in, and we're gonna work around the clock." And you're like, anyways, it took another 2 years for them to build that. So we ended up playing. So we lived in like downtown, in these apartments next to what it should have been our arena, but played at the other end of the city in the Junior A arena. So it was like an hour commute every day.
And they just weren't ready at all.
No. And we were awful. We're in Victoria. Like, we are in one of the greatest cities in the world. We apparently can't recruit anybody to come play for us. We were pulling guys like had been retired that hadn't even played at this level 7 years ago. And we're putting them in it was chaos. And it was the year of the lockout. So then we brought like Purinton in. We had like this Mark Smith who used to play for the San Jose Sharks, little guy. And we had like a lot of tough guys. And yeah, it was just like, it was planes, trains, and automobiles, man. It was nuts. Like, the travel was crazy.
I find it interesting in the coast and stuff. Some of the stories that are out there is like you see that Netflix documentary about the Trashers. Like there was a lot of teams that had some wild stuff
Oh,
going on.
you could make one about almost like a lot of them just in their own way. I mean, the whole decision making that season, like it never surrounded like what was best for the team. It was always like what's easiest. We had like we hubbed in Vegas for like 12 days, and we'd like play Vegas and then just like dart into like California and play like San Diego and you're like, oh, we didn't really get the results on this swing. Like I can't put my finger on it.
I'm not sure why, but we're just not
Yeah,
getting the wins. Hazy
yeah,
sunset.
yeah. It was just like crazy, crazy guys would blow their per diem in the first day on the
Oh,
roulette.
and then they're screwed, eh? Because you're not making
Yeah,
enough, and they're waiting.
yeah. Oh man, it was like yeah, and then from there I went to South Carolina.
So you were
Um,
living in pretty good town or cities or towns those 2 years though there at the end, I guess. Because South Carolina, the Stingrays, that's a pretty nice spot. I played against them. That's a nice barn too.
Yeah, yeah. So when my roommate, like the guy that was staying with me, was Robin Gomez. Remember him?
No.
Big tough guy. He'd been playing in South Carolina, and I after the season in Vic, I'm like I can't. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like the same thing's going on here. Like I can't come back. Like this is just and they ended up getting better and better and better and better. But it was anyway. So I got a trade over to South Carolina. I don't even know how I got traded. Like I don't even know what I didn't. I don't. I thought it was like a 1 year contract, but whatever. And yeah, so I got traded to South Carolina and spent a year there, and it was awesome. There's like great coaching. Jared Fitzsimmons, Jared Bednar was our assistant coach, who's in Colorado.
Yeah, and he had played there at one point as a player with episode
Oh
3, Greg Schmidt. Yeah, Bednar.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember Schmidt. Yeah, I remember the name. Yeah, they were before our time. So I was there for 1 year, and that was always going to be my last year. And then I was going to try Europe, and I was just going to go to Europe for a year and call it a day.
So then how does that work then? Because I understand why you go. Like you've been playing pro now 5 years. You're a hockey player. You want to be a hockey player. You're a hockey guy. You're the same as me. You want to keep doing it. That's what you want to do, at least for a year, right? So you go to Italy. How does that deal all happen? How do you get there?
Well,
Because you're in Italy
well,
too for
Italy too. So yeah,
Caldaro.
so I was in the summer. I'm like, I didn't want to go to Britain. I was like, I had offers to go there, like, all over the place, and I'm like, nope. Then I was like, well, actually, I'm not really that attractive to European teams because, like, when I got like 200 penalty minutes, and I'm not like, it
The
just didn't really,
European guy.
yeah, I didn't really get that feel. So I was like, wow, whatever. I don't want to go here. And I'm like, and then this like Italian second league came in, but they had like I think I had an offer from FASA, and then it was like 15,000 or 10,000 euros more to go to the second league, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'll go to the second league. How bad could it be?
Yeah.
And then I got there, and I'm like, oh man, did I make a mistake? Like, what am I doing here? I mean, the town was awesome. It was beautiful. Um,
Are you in like the Alps?
yeah, like northern, like just north of Bolzano. So
I
yeah,
don't know it that
it
well.
it was awesome, man. It was like that. You know what? I went back about 6 years later on a scouting trip there. Just went and watched like some of the Italian when I was coaching in Sheffield. 6 years or whatever. And I was so miserable there that I didn't even realize how nice it was. And it was actually like when I got there, I'm like, oh my god. Like when I went back again, I'm not playing here. I'm outside of my own head. And
Yes.
I was like, it's crazy how you can get so narrow minded, right? And not even fucking see like where you're at. And then when I went back there, I'm like, oh my god, like this place is like it might be the most beautiful place I've ever been. I always tell my wife, I'm like, I have to take you here because it's crazy. But I also fucking hate it every second that I was here.
And then
But
yeah, when you're a hockey player though, and like hockey's not going good, and like I remember going to Germany, and like now when you look back on it, you're like, God, I wish we could go on that vacation again or this vacation again, and you're not just thinking about the season or what's coming and what's
yeah,
happened, and you're like the things you get to see and do over there, and then Yeah, now that you
Yeah.
could appreciate it, you don't get to see it
When
anymore.
it's gone, yeah, you're kind of like, man, I can't believe how miserable I was because I had to go do that, or they made me go to do this, or I
Yeah,
lost.
because I had to go do some promotional thing for
Yeah,
someone, and you're like, look at how much stuff you do in a day in the real world,
yeah,
guys, hockey
exactly.
players, active players. If you don't think you can go do that, you're a lazy punk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah. So then I got the call to go to Sheffield. I think Simsy phoned me, and he's like, "Hey, like, what's your deal?" And then it was so weird because like it's just so backwards in some of those leagues, right? They have like they got like a board of directors, which is like 10 guys in in this city, right? And all 10 of them can speak English until it's time that you have to go and in the translation, the English translation of what they call themselves was the foreskin, like the foreskin. So you always had to go like, fuck, I got to see the foreskin today, and it
That's
was
the
like about
brass. The brass is the
yeah, and it
foreskin.
was like you would sit at they'd be in a horseshoe and you'd sit at the end of the table, and the guy to your left who would basically start the meeting, and he would tell you in English what's going on, and then they'd be like, okay, well, you take lots of penalties, and then they just go and talk to each other, and then it'd fucking go around the horseshoe and come back, and it'd say, you must take less penalties. And you're like, okay, all right, and then next topic, okay, and it just goes around and around and around and around, and it,
Oh,
it lasts like for 45 minutes, and you're like, okay. We had an American goalie, and he said like when he went in, like some of them got up and in their seats and were like going like this and five hole, and he's like five hole the shoulder, okay,
yeah.
and
You want
he'd
me
be
to
like
stop those ones?
you make more saves, yes, okay, gotcha. And
Gotcha.
yeah, he said like, but yeah, so they had this backwards deal. Like I had to play out like the weekend or 2 weeks or something like that, and I couldn't take a penalty. If I took a penalty, then it like they the fee would go up. So I played. I never got more hurt in my life because I was so afraid of fucking taking a penalty. And like in that league, you like the EIHL gets a bad rep sometimes for the refing. I mean, this is
Oh,
like this they're like looking for the imports. They fucking hate imports.
oh
And
yeah, and well, yeah, I guess the second league Italy is something different, but like in Germany, man, there were refs that were so arrogant and so bad. But then if you ever looked at them like you just made a bad call and they knew they did, but they're so arrogant, they just give you a 10. Just send you to
yeah,
the box for 10. They just 10 you up right there.
just dine you right up. Yeah, yeah. So I remember like I got to Sheffield. I'm like I had so many injuries because I just got hit. Like I just literally just like didn't do anything. You can't you play that way. That's when
You're
you get
getting hit in the second league in
yeah,
Italy.
well,
The
yeah.
little
Just getting
Italian boys are
bullied.
running amok
It's
with
like
you.
getting bullied out there. I couldn't take a penalty, so I was just like, oh, like, just gone. Oh, it was awful. But then that's where the UK started.
Well, and I could see how you like I've never seen you play, but just from my podcast player review is I think the UK league is your honey hole. That's where your style of play is perfect. You can fight, you can score, you can you do it all, and that's exactly what the UK fans, coaches want. Like it was like North American hockey, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was, and like I said, I was so impressed with everything. I mean, I was thankful to get out of Italy, and then I got to Sheffield, this beautiful arena. It was nothing like it looks now, too. They put a lot of money into it recently. Yeah, and then we had such a good group of guys there. Like the British contingency who kind of ran it. Mark Thomas, Phillips, who's still there, Jono and Huey. And yeah, we the first year there we lost. I think we lost to go to the playoff final in a shootout, like to Nottingham, like in a shootout.
A
And
shootout.
to go, yeah. So I was like, and then the next year I think we won the playoffs, and then yeah, we had some really good years and some good guys. That's where Talbot, McGuee, and all these guys kind of came into it.
Yeah, Legui is a dandy too. That guy seems like a good time. I've never hung out with him other than for a podcast though.
Oh man, the stories for him, yeah, there's tons.
Yeah,
Too
well,
many.
there's stories about you too.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah, but anyways, moving on. Um, so I'm on the wrong page now. We're in Sheffield now, and there were some expectations on you guys back then, because like that's when Sheffield is like the big dogs, right? And they're winning every year. And how was that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, it was before social media, so that's nice now, knowing what we know now, with everything there. But yeah, I mean, that was like your fan form pressure, like they had but yeah, no, it just, yeah, you were just expected to win, and like you were expected to win in a certain fashion. Like we were winning games and we were still getting booed because it was boring. Like it was just nuts. And then the rivalry back then with Nottingham was like the real rivalry. It was intense, man. Your crowds went from like 3,000 to like 7,000. Like it was wild. Um, and then like both teams always had fighters, and there's always like middleweights, and it was like the level of that game compared to like when you came into
Anywhere else?
yeah, Edinburgh or anywhere really. It was crazy. Like it was just next level. It was nuts.
And so who are you fighting then? Because you put up some Pally minutes. Any memorable fights you got?
Um, I used to always fight this guy named Bruce Richardson, who played for a long time.
I always
And,
found it interesting when guys fight each other repetitively, like in different
yeah,
leagues on different teams, but it always seems to be those two going. And
we, yeah,
sometimes you have a good relationship and you're like, hey, you ready to do it again? Or what was your relationship? Did you hate the guy or were you okay?
no, he was kind of the same kind of player as me, and he played for Nottingham, and we played him like the first game, and he was an older guy, um, and he's small. He was a small guy, like he wasn't very big, but he was tough, and he just like he came to Nottingham, and they hated me in Nottingham, so he was like, I'll fight him. And then I think he said it as something, and then it was like, well, I guess I gotta follow through. And then of course I heard like we're playing Sheffield, like, hey, what's this guy's deal? Like, I don't know, but he wants to fight. I'm like, oh great. First shift, first shift, our coach starts me. He's starting, and I'm like, this guy's got like, he's like, honestly, his fucking eyes are bloodshot. He's foaming from the mouth. He's like, we going? He's French, and I'm like, fuck. And I remember circling back, like, I better get mad here because this guy's pretty intense.
Yeah,
And then,
when there's no reason to be mad at someone, it's be hard to fight, right? Like the only fights I ever got into in hockey are like the passionate ones that like it just kind of happened. But
yeah. Those are yeah. So that was fun. Anyway, so we fought each other all the time, and then I remember now we're buddies. Like we talk. I talk to him all the time. I ended up having a beer with him one night in Nottingham, like just randomly, like like. But I remember that after the last time we fought, we kind of looked over at each other in the pelly box and just kind of went, like, we're done.
yeah,
Like enough. And
enough.
then yeah, like enough. We're done. There's enough of this shit. But yeah, he was and he coaches in the queue right now. He ended up coaching a bit over here. Yeah, Bruce Richardson, he's got an unreal American League career. Awesome. Just like you'd have him on every team. You'd have 10 Bruce Richardsons on every team if you could.
Yeah, it's interesting. The hockey guys are just hockey guys, and that's why I'm curious when like they're middleweights that would just fight each other, and they knew that's their role and that's what they do in hockey, and they had respect, right? And it wasn't like a hatred. They were just doing their jobs, right?
Yeah, I mean back then, like we had the real heavyweights. I mean, like we're sitting here talking about fighting, I'm fucking fighter, but we had like some big heavyweights, like Newcastle. They would have like every tough guy you can imagine, and they were awful to play, awful. Like they were like the equivalent to like the Wheeling Nailers when I was in Peoria. Like Wheeling had like 9 just meatheads, and you just wanted to like beat them in overtime and then get the fuck off the ice.
Yeah, you
You
don't
know what
want
I
to you don't want to get up by a couple
mean?
goals.
No, like if there's an empty net, you just want to ice
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I understand. Um, it's interesting how the game's changed, and you've been through it even more than me because you were part of the game before I was, and you're still in it. So you've seen the game change a lot, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I still like having tough teams. Like I still like it, not necessarily fighting. I mean,
Especially in your barn.
yeah, we still like to play heavy, and especially in our little tiny rink. But yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely changed. I mean, it's a puck possession game. It's a skater's game now. You can't be slow and effective anymore. Um, everybody can make plays, and D-men now, can make plays under pressure, and like just things that back in our day it was just D-men go back and hard rim pucks or throw it off the glass and out. So it's definitely changed. There's a lot more skill, and the young kids coming up are ultra talented. And the old guys just got the good hockey brains. I think that there may be more skill and less brains. I think some days I find now.
No, I agree though, because you watch the NHL some nights and you'll see a guy making 8 million, like make a turnover you wouldn't even see in the UK league, but they have so much high end skill that they're willing to let the guy get by, right?
Yeah. You got to give him a little freedom to do what he does, and sometimes it don't go well. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously we're still different. Like you said, our rink's pretty tiny and small, so we like to, like we still like to play pretty heavy and get on checks and turnbucks. There's no real skill within our rink. The skill is learning how to play in our rink, and it's tough for opposing teams. So yeah, so it's but then it's also like difficult because then you got to take your game to the big ice. You got to go into like the big rinks. Was Guilford in the league when you were here?
No, but I was in the big blue tent.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so when I was in Cardiff, we were still playing in basically the same rink you are. And
Yeah.
I grew up playing in a rink like that. So for me, it felt great because not much of a skater at that point in my career with my bad knee. I liked the small ice, and I liked just knowing where to be and where it was going to come off the wall than having to skate there like in Nottingham or Sheffield.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those games sucked.
They're hard. Yeah, and
Too
it's
much
hard for
skating.
hard
God.
for guys to go from this. It's like, training to be a sprinter and then getting told to run a marathon like the next night, like it's tough. It takes some time to adjust. We're learning that right now. Like our guys are like, geez, I'm getting used to here, and then all of a sudden I go over there and I'm like my timing, my everything's off.
It affects the team you want to build, right? Because you're going to play half your games at home, but then you're going to play half the games where you play the big ice teams, and then they got D-men that are just going to, like, you dump it in, and in your rink you can dump it in and go get it, and
Mhm.
there you dump it in and you don't see it again for another 2 minutes.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like they get back, they get it, and they're in your zone right away, and you're like,
Well, because the fast D-man just picks it up and skates
yeah,
around your forechecker, and then there's no F2 because it's too far away, and then you're just like, gosh, this game
yeah,
sucks.
yeah. You're just angling all the time. But then it's a challenge. But like you know what I'm talking about because you did it. You played in the smaller rink and then had to go and play in the big rink, and you're like, man, did I even what kind of shape am I in? I remember like thinking like I'm dying. Like,
Yeah.
how hot is it? I remember like every time I went to Nottingham early, I'm like, how fucking hot is it here? And they're like, no, it's the same temperature. I'm like, fuck. Like
No,
it's
there's
fine.
no way it's the same temperature. Zero chance it's the same temperature. That rink is warm. So is Sheffield.
Yeah,
The
Sheffield.
sweat doesn't even feel natural when you're that warm already, and then you start sweating. It's not
Yeah.
right.
Did you win over here? Did you guys win it? Like, did
Just
you
the
win
Challenge Cup.
the Challenge Cup? Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's like you. How drunk do you get on the ice? Did you guys drink on the ice?
Well, I would say it carried on for a while. Um, Cardiff Devils aren't allowed back in a certain hotel in Sheffield.
Yeah.
But I don't know what hotel that was. I know we had a great time, and we had fun.
I remember like every time we won the playoffs because they bring like you have to stay on the ice for quite a while, right? Like to do all this stuff, but they load the booze out, so you're so dehydrated from playing, and then you're just replenishing with booze.
Well, we
Like
lost 11-1 on the Friday, right? So we won on a Wednesday. We lost 11-1 on the Friday. Or we won on a Tuesday or when? Yeah, it was during the week, and then we played Sheffield again a few
oh
days later, and they beat us
yeah,
11-1.
you know what? I think I was at that game. You guys won in Sheffield, right?
2-1. That was the new owners. All the buses
Yeah.
came, and it was a big deal. And then we played them again. And you would have probably watched the league game because we're battling for the trophy, the three teams. You
Right.
guys,
I think I came to the Challenge Cup game. I don't think we were playing. I was coaching in Glasgow probably then, and
yeah,
I
we
came to
lost
Sheffield.
11-1 though. Yeah, and then they ended up winning the league by 2 points, or one,
Yeah,
like in your case, I guess. Yeah, we
yeah.
lost 11-1 that
We
night.
lost to Edinburgh. In Edinburgh, like 2-1.
Yeah,
The
and
second.
I think it was Frankie was talking about that where the goalie just stood his head. But you'd have those nights at Edinburgh where as soon as the goalie starts making saves, you're like, come on, it's not one of those nights, right? Because you go there and you're like, this is going to be a great night. We're going to cruise around. We're going to score some goals. And then the goalie starts stopping pucks and you're playing for a league title. And you're like, good gosh, not tonight.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had that night. I mean, I don't even know. I remember like on the bench, you're like, even when there was like you're down 2-1 or whatever, and you're like, it's 5 minutes left in the third, you're like, we'll find a way out. We always find a way. And it's like holy fuck, backdoor miss, backdoor save, backdoor. And you're like, now there's 60 seconds. You're like, oh my God, seriously? And it's just like guys now are starting to tense up because we knew if we lost, that was it. Like we needed help and the help wasn't coming. And then we had to, because then there was two teams that made the Champions League that year. So once we lost that, we still had to fight you guys to stay above you to get into the Champions League the next year. And we had to win away in Fife, which was always hard in Glasgow. And we did that. It's all coming back.
It's all coming back. And that was basically my last year of hockey. And then the next year I started out and then hurt my knee. Then I became a pregame speaker. Actually been in the Manchester arena before, in the bathroom, in the away room for over an hour, naked, covered in dirt, ready to do a pregame speech because the glass broke. But yeah, it was a strange night. But the boys won.
No, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That was the old Ultra.
Well, you got to try and help the boys win, even if you can't play, right? But okay, so we kind of skipped a bunch of stuff, but I just had a curious question. After Sheffield, and you did really well for 2.5 years, the next year before you go to Cardiff, you started with the Bloomington Prairie Thunder. Why was that?
Contract. So I left Sheffield after my third year, and I wanted to make a certain amount of money, and it wasn't coming. So I thought I'll hold out, and they didn't.
And then you ended up with the Bloomington Prairie Thunder.
Yeah, then I followed my buddy Gomez over there. And the ironic thing was I knew I was only going to be there short term. Was Jared Scaldi, the new coach of them, was the coach there.
Oh, okay. So you played for him.
So I left Scalds to go to Cardiff, and that's what I said. I'm like, how ironic, eh? Now,
yeah,
you're here.
It's quite the web of hockey, I tell you. When you start talking to people in your shed, it's very weird how many people know each other that you didn't realize. Navigating lieutenant.
So I went there, and then Franny called me. I mean, I knew I was going to go back to the UK. It was just kind of a matter of when
and where.
And where. Like by now I know the league, so now I know the spots to go. And like I think I was gonna potentially Nottingham were talking to me early, and I was like, and then that was like, and then Franny called me, and I knew Brad Both. I played with Bother in Peoria, and he called me, and he got us over there for pretty much since November, I think, or December. I came over and then played that, and then came back the following year.
Yeah, and then you become the captain, and that's probably like when you start kind of going towards becoming a player coach eventually is when you become a captain in that league, right? But
so I think how that worked out is Bother was captain, and he was getting like the way he played, he was getting like suspended and like, you know what I mean? It was just like a lot, like he didn't have the best rapport with the refs. And he was like, you know what, like this, like it's not worth you going and screaming as a captain at the ref and then getting a 2 or a 10 or and so then they gave it to Richie, and I think Richie was still really, really young. And then the following year, G was like, I just want somebody who will just keep accountability, like make sure, like I don't want just a quiet guy. I just want somebody that's like comfortable enough to just, like we want to have a bit of that fuck you attitude, and I want you to kind of be an extension of me, and I think he just saw like maybe, this is a guy who'll stand up and he'll shout instead of me. Like I'll let him do it because he was a player coach, and it's the worst job in the world. So I think he may have thought of it like, this guy he's not afraid to call guys out. He's not afraid to be the, and I think he wanted something like that in the room to keep guys accountable. And but then we ended up turning out like he recruited like Matska, who's a stud, easily could have been captain. We had some young guys, and John Paley, like his recruitment that year was unreal. Every low end guy, like every guy that he got on a budget, because we weren't a big budget team back then. Every guy that he got on the lower end of the scale just fucking killed it. Like Pelly scored 50 on minimum wage. Stuart McRae, like we had all Tyler Michelle, we had all these guys, these no-name guys, and they just
showed up. Yeah.
And we had 3 lines that were like, that was my line from the day I showed up to the day I left. It was Bother, Phil Hill. you know, and all the lines stayed together all year, never chopped, never changed, like really since like probably October, the same 3 lines. And we didn't, and you know what, we didn't get injuries. Like,
What
nobody got hurt back.
yeah, that's true. Nobody did get hurt because even if they were hurt, we didn't tell people because
Yeah, yeah.
that was
Like,
the way it was. And now
even,
everybody's
yeah,
like, "Oh man, I gotta get a massage, or I'm not gonna be able to play tonight."
it was like we were talking about that. I'm like, even our Sheffield days, like we had those good teams, and like we always we played with like 5 D-men and 10 forwards, and like God, I had like last year I had like 6 imports out, or the year before the pandemic. You know, you're like, obviously we had injuries, but yeah, nobody got hurt back then. It didn't seem like it anyways.
Before we get too far ahead, because I wanted to say something when you said you were the captain with the fuck you attitude and the coach was a player coach. Um, that kind of struck a nerve with me because, like, I remember when I was going to Cardiff and Lordo had a whole new team and he was like asking people, "Do you think you're a captain? Do you think you're this? Do you think you're that?" Like, and he's trying to figure out what. And I said, "I'm not a captain." I said, "I'm an assistant captain." I said, "I'm going to bring the boys together. I'm going to bring a team together, but I'm not the captain." And you need someone else that's going to step up and yell and shout and I'm like, but I'll be there to support that guy and I'll be there to support the other part, but I'm not a captain, right? And when you're saying you have that as the captain, but he's a player coach, that's kind of what you need, right? Like if
Yeah,
there were teams where I played on that didn't have that captain, that's a true captain that's taken over and he's the captain, and then all of a sudden everybody's looking to me to do it. And I'm like, wow, that's not me. Like, that's not what I do.
yeah,
Like, we're going to be having fun with me. I need someone else to do that. And I support him that way. Right. And you need
yeah.
each other to do that.
You need like, I think a captain's a guy, like you don't need a guy that's going to yell at every fucking player. You know, like it's not that. But you need a guy that you know is going to care more than the next guy. Like if things aren't going well, he's going to wear it more than maybe the quiet guys. And like, if practice isn't going well, he's a guy who's going to be like, let's fucking go, or
Let's
like,
go. Right. And
you
like,
know,
let's do this.
or
Yeah.
yeah, or maybe, you know, in one-on-one drills, maybe going a little harder against certain guys that if they're not pulling their weight, and you know,
Yeah.
like you just know it's not the guy that's going to be your co-coach. He's just the guy that you're like, hey, like if we fuck around, he's gonna like. I'm more worried
He's
about
going to
him.
bring reel everybody
Yeah,
back
I'm more
in.
worried about him than I am about the coach. You know what I mean? Like and I think that's where, and then yeah, like I think those are the captains that you have, the guys who are good leaders. They're not, you know, they're good people, but at the end of the day, they're going to hold the whole room accountable when the ship's not going. You know,
Exactly.
that's their job. And I think as a coach, if you got a good captain, that's half your battle, man. Because fucking, you think you're going to go in there and yell at them every single day, and they're still going to listen to you in 4 months? Like, see ya. You're like your voice is gone. Like, especially now.
Same as with your kids, right? If you're always
Yeah,
yelling at them and you're always telling them what they should be doing, eventually they're just gonna be like, "Shut up."
yeah, yeah. Exactly. It's just in any walk of life, really. I mean, if you know,
Yeah, any
directing
boss,
traffic.
really, right?
Yeah, if you're just directing traffic the whole
But if
fucking.
it's the captain and he's out there doing it and he's showing you how to do it,
Yeah.
then you better get in line.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was it. And but you know, it turned out that G did this unreal recruitment job. We brought in Craig Weller, and that's when our season really took off. Wellesley was like a hybrid, like a player we'd never seen. I mean, this guy was like, he was 6'4", he could fly, he had unreal skill. He was a forward. He was like a forward. He was just a hybrid. He just
I think he played in the second league in Germany for what bit, didn't he?
even when he was in Austria, he played in Phoenix. Like if you ever he might have, he didn't play like a ton in the show, but he might have the best YouTube clip ever of like in the NHL. It was like he like runs over a guy, then somebody comes to take a run at him, he just fucking drops him, then another guy comes and he just drops him. Like it was like, I wish that was my NHL highlight. Like it was just like 3 guys just, and Wellesley's just, and he's like
Same.
the nicest human you've ever met. Like yeah,
But
he's
you
like,
come at him, he's gonna drop you.
oh fuck, he was something. Yeah, he was something.
Okay, so I guess we're still in your playing days. We better get out of there. Because then you get the job as a player coach out of Cardiff, right? Is that right? You guys win, or you guys get the Guinness Book of World Records thing, and you're the captain, and then the next year you're player coach.
Yeah, so this was kind of it. I think I got a bad rep for Cardiff on this one, but the owner of Cardiff at the time also bought Sheffield, and they I think Cardiff lost. I don't know what happened. There a lot of money. Or anyways, the next year in Cardiff, there wasn't going to be the team that we just had. Like there was some cuts coming. Their G was starting to get pushed out.
After
That's
the
when
season you just have.
that's when the shit. Yeah, that's when the shit went bad. Like that's when, if you look back, and then before the Steve King's group took over,
Yeah.
it was like this, right? Like
Right.
that.
So you were at the top of the mountain, and then
We
it
were
went
at the
down
top of
from
the
there.
mountain, and we all knew it was going this way. I mean, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes as far as the ownership. And, I knew G was kind of like, they kind of didn't like G. And I mean, then you could follow the next couple of years. So it was like, oh, okay. And, and I think I would have been invited back, but I think it would have been on a way less salary, and it would have been, you know what I mean? It was just, we we found
see
out
it
pretty quick.
coming, and you know what?
Yeah,
It sucks.
and in history, we were right. Like you can look back and see where that thing went before it got bought up by these guys, and all the new era of like Lordo and all those guys came. Right, it was kind of like heading down.
Well, that's what sucks for me is when I was in Germany, that's what happened to me was I saw it coming. I saw us going down on the roller coaster, and I decided to stay on the roller coaster instead of get off while I'm on the top. I
Mhm.
decided to head down, and then we never really got back up.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually signed. I always wanted to do the school program. So Paul Thompson gave me a deal in Coventry, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see. And then the this was going this way, and I'm like, you know what? I'm now 30 or 20. Like I'm not getting any younger. We just had this incredible year. I've been a part of Sheffield already. Like I didn't have a lot of years left in my life, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity and get that done. And then I got offered the Sheffield job, and I'm like, I didn't ask for it. And it was just like, hey, do you from the old owner. And
And so you were going to go to Coventry and do school,
yeah,
and then that's how you end up in Sheffield.
yeah. And then the coaching thing, like I always had like an idea about coaching, but it wasn't like some
That's
guys are
what
like,
you want to do. You
that's why
didn't
I'm gonna
know.
coach. No. And even the first 2 years looking back, man, the first year, like you don't know what you're doing. You think like players think I'd be the best fucking coach until you have to do it. And then to boot to go to Sheffield and be a player coach, which was just the world's worst job. I mean, it,
You must have
takes a
been
sweat.
so busy.
It,
You
it,
must have been busy as a hockey player, but then with all the other side of it,
it takes a special, like I think if you're a goalie, you could be a player coach. You know what I mean? Because like or a stay-at-home defenseman. But when you're a forward and I think when you're a forward and like you're maybe not a guy that would ever play yourself ahead of somebody. I was like I would rather just be on the fourth line and let you know what I mean. And then instead of putting myself out there all the time, so it was like
yeah.
I hated every second of it. And like and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know systems. I didn't know. Looking back, like it takes like 5 years, really, to really get the player out of you to kind of just, even then, like depends how close to the game you are. But yeah, it was hard. I hated it. I got the opportunity then just to become the coach, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Like you bet, fuck this, I'm done. And that was it. And went
Well,
back.
then you must have done a good job to get that offer as just the coach then, because you were the player coach and then you become just the
Yeah, I
coach. And
think we.
that's a bigger budget, right? Then that's a new job that they had a guy that did both. Now they got to pay two guys.
Yeah, so the year I went there, the guy that owned Cardiff owned Sheffield, and we didn't have a good budget at all. Like we were minimal. We were like 700 or 800 quid more than what Cardiff were paying, and Cardiff were paying peanuts. And then the next year is the year where Tony Smith took over, who's now the new owner. He kind of came in lightly. He bought out Paul Reagan, and he dipped his toe. So I went through like the learning process with new ownership that year, which was hard because the expectations never left Sheffield, no matter what the budgets are, and who's owning. And so it was a real transition time, especially compared to where they are now. And yeah, and we had a great brought in a really good group, and we just we didn't win, and so off I went to Glasgow.
Yeah, well, you seems like you did a decent job, but yeah, Glasgow is where we talked about. Like you had teams full of dudes that seem like good dudes. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the guys I have on my podcast aren't good dudes. Maybe they're not what hockey needs, but I think they are. And like Al Levy, Frank the Tank, like the list goes on. You were recruiting good dudes that I think if they come on my podcast, they're a good dude, usually. And you were recruiting a lot of guys that were my friends, and that's what made me think like I need to have you on the podcast because it seems like we would have got along if we would have played together.
Yeah, yeah, I think I mean like Al Levitt is not exactly a coach's dream by any stretch of the imagination,
Hell of a
I think,
power play, though.
but yeah, exactly. But I think at that stage now, I'd been coaching for 4 or 5 years, I can't whatever, right? And you just learn to deal with these guys. Like it's not you like we talked about it. Every guy's different, and like with Levy, I just liked him. It made me laugh, and he was so effective in what he did, and like he's a fucking unreal player. And for every time that he screwed up, he would make 10 unreal plays. And like you said,
Exactly.
on the power play, you'd run him if it was you'd put him on both power play units. If he was in good enough shape to play both power play units, he would have been. But he's in better shape now than he was when he played.
I think you are too.
Well, no, I can tell you that's not true. But yeah,
Really?
no, we had
I
an
saw a couple
unreal.
player photos there that, I was like, geez, he looks pretty slim and trim these days. I'm not sure when he was a player.
Go ahead, go stop. You hit 40. You don't care anymore.
Uh,
You just once you don't care anymore. Yeah, but yeah, no, yeah, we had an awesome like all 4 years there. We had good pieces, but that middle year, that second and third year, the year that we almost won it, and then the next year where we went to the Champions League, we had some good groups. I'll tell you a good story. So we had that one team where the boys and they would, I mean, like I said, I mean, they would, we all live together, which is nice too, right? Like it's nice when everybody lives near each other. It's no good when everybody's spread out because then they
you're
can't do
right. You're
anything.
absolutely right.
And you always want to do that, but I mean, you're going out getting new housing every year. It's hard enough just to get the boys housed, let alone put them all in the same spot. But when it works, it works. And that year it worked. All the guys were close and they're right by the rink, and there was the Weatherspoons and whatever. But they'd all like go to they'd all meet after games in guys' apartments, right? And they'd be there till God knows what hour and doing their thing, and all the wives and all the girls. And I think people like I'm kind of like a big believer, like you got to involve the wives and the girls and the kids of the other guys because it makes it so much fucking easier for that guy to be there. Like if it's just the boys,
No
it's
good.
short lived for the guy with the wife and two kids, or a wife and like. But if you can get them all in and all the
You
wives get
got
together,
to get them
it
involved.
and that's what they did. All the wives got along, all the guys got along. There is so much unity off like in the room, right? We had toughness, like we had
And
like
that comes in on the ice, right? You get
yeah,
that going off the ice, it happens on the ice.
and we had like Zach Fitzgerald, we had Frankie, we had like I mean we just had this like salts,
Yeah,
like we just had
you guys were tough and you could play. I
yeah,
remember the team.
yeah, and then the next year I think is when Levy came. I think I'd have to
Yeah.
go back. Anyways, so I had this group, loved everything. It was such a smooth running year. We didn't end up winning anything at the end, but it didn't matter. Like it was such a success, and guys did well. And I brought back a large portion of them. I brought in, I think, Stephen Meyer. I brought in Levitt. I lost Salts to you guys.
Yeah.
And I remember where I was when he called me. I remember where I was like, I was so fucking mad, but I couldn't get him in my school. I was so mad at because
And
I
that's
couldn't.
what he wanted with
He
school.
wanted school, and I just
And
couldn't do it.
yeah, it sucks
And
for those teams that can't do it because
yeah, like I
it's a,
just,
like I said, it's a leg up.
yeah, exactly. So that's how they got him. That's how you guys got him. Like, to this day, I know he didn't want to go. He would have stayed
I
there if he
know he
was
didn't
in
want to go.
school.
I would talk to him
Um,
about it while he was there, and he was like, he wasn't that thrilled with everything. And then they do
yeah,
everything they can to get him there, and then he wasn't playing what he wanted to play and where he wanted to play. And when he was with you guys, he was first line, and
Yeah.
and it was more fun. And I know what he like, because I was his buddy and I'm there trying to help him and
Yeah.
trying to get him to feel like he likes it, so that Cardiff can be good, because everybody plays hockey better when they are having fun.
Yeah. So the next year, and we're talking about trying to replicate what we had and fill the gaps, and you can't do it, right? Like there's
You
no
can't.
secret to it. You got to get lucky. So we still had a really good core, and we had a few more guys with kids and a couple older guys, and but we didn't have that team that would hang out all the time, and I always pissed me off. I'm like, fucking guys go 15 different ways on a day off. Like what happened to last year? You guys all, and you can tell even
Monday
from
fun day.
college. Yeah, I was like, I was still close to it. I could see like we're not, like guys, this guy's doing his thing, and this guy, and I didn't like anything of it. And I always got mad at, I'd always get mad at Keither, and Keither just had a kid, and it's hard, right? And it's like, all right, well, this is fucking bullshit. So I got sick of it. And how it is in Glasgow for the first month, you practice on the road. So you're practicing like in Edinburgh, you're practicing like in Auchenharvey or whatever, and and we'd always drive and just to give the guys travel money, right? We're just it's fucking miserable for the first month there. But I didn't like the way we were going. I think they needed a team night out, but then I didn't even know if fucking I shouldn't organize one. But but there's just like I didn't like it, so I was like, fuck it, we're taking a bus. I ordered a bus and I just phoned the bus company. I'm like, hey, how much for the bus? And to like take the guys to Edinburgh, and when they're like, and then when you get to Edinburgh, I just want you to come home at like 9 o'clock at night. Like I'm not telling them like fuck it, I don't give a shit, and they can just go fucking blitz it out in Edinburgh. It's a great city. So I didn't tell the guys, and then whatever, and then at the end of practice, I'm like, yeah, we'll see. I drove, so I fucked off, went home, and I told like Keither, yeah, the bus isn't coming back till 9, so here's like I don't know, here's a couple of whatever 500 quid or whatever, like have fun. And he was like, guys are like, all the wives are losing, and I'm like, if the wives are upset, just have them call me. It's okay,
Yeah,
like you'll be
this
fine.
is part of the job.
Yeah. Anyway, so we ended up going on like an 8-game winning streak after it. But I was I got calls from 3 different bars, like bar owners in Edinburgh. Like the boys just went wild on like a Tuesday afternoon. And
But you go on an 8-game winning streak, and it's
yeah,
because
yeah.
they did that day, and
Like
they don't want to disappoint you
I got
because of what you
emails.
did for them.
I remember the Boozy Cow, I think it was called in Edinburgh, and I'm never thinking like the Boozy Cow. And I don't know what they did, but like the bar staff was like terrified. Honestly, it was like, what the fuck happened in there? Like, I'm getting like some pretty alarming emails. I don't even know how they worked it all the way back to me, but they figured it out. But yeah, and then we went on a run, and I remember thinking like, that was it, because the guys went out. They actually got to know one another away from the fucking, the wives and the kids, and actually away from the rink. To be fair, not the wives and kids, but just away from the rink. You get to know a guy after a couple of years. Like you can sit next to a guy and never really know him until you kind of
You
go out
have you
to.
have you have to do that. You have to
Yeah,
get to know each other. You have to get to know what they're about, where they're from, or when it's on the ice, it's just a different
yeah,
it's a different brotherhood, right? Like there's the guys that get just out of the way of a block shot, or there's the guys that will eat it for the team, right?
yeah. There's the guys that just can't quite find that lane.
I never really could until
Yeah,
the playoffs. The playoffs I could. I knew where
yeah,
that was then.
yeah. Ew, fucking curved by me again.
Well, that's why the UK league's so tough, right?
The UK league is. I mean, now you should see guys are blocking shots and laying down in front. I mean, it's like it's intense. It's intense. Like we tell like the new guys here, I'm like it's gonna be way better than you think, and it's because we are the lower end teams. Like there is not one day off. Like there's nobody that you're just gonna walk in, show up and play. Even when I played, we had Edinburgh that you could predominantly just do what you when I played, not when I coached. And then but now, man, like you roll into like Match and you're not ready to go, or Dundee or Fife, like you're
No,
driving fucking 20 hours to come home for nothing. You know, it's
oh,
it's
definitely. And you can drive so far, and then you end up losing that game, and you got to bus the whole way back, and there's no beers on the bus, there's no cards, there's no talking. You deserve that because you just lost to a shitty team.
Yeah, and especially you guys in Cardiff, because I mean they fly now, but that was a long trip to Scotland back then. I don't know if you were flying. Were you flying when you guys played?
No, we were bussers back then. Now they're
Yeah,
flyers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now they're first class. But yeah, yeah. I know it's a long trip. I mean, we're lucky that we're 3-4 hours kind of is our max. Well, maybe 5. But
Well,
yeah,
I do love your rink. I actually love your fans too. There's another story behind that. It was that night I was stuck in the bathroom. I showed up with a Viking outfit to do my pregame speech, and the guy parking the bus, just some random guy in Manchester, had a Viking hat on, and I asked him for it. He gave it to me for my pregame speech, and he just says "hockey family, man," and he gives it to me. He says, "Just return it when you're done." And then I went in, did a pregame speech naked, covered in dirt from Dees, with an axe, a sword, and a shield. And I also had the Viking hat on too, right? So then it just was more appropriate. And then I gave him his hat back after the first period. And I thought the Manchester fans were incredible. I thought they're great people. They were very welcoming to, I guess, the Red Army, you'd call it. But like, and I was part of that day. So yeah, it seems like you got a good core of fans and
yeah,
passionate fans that you got, and quite the barn, right?
yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it is. We always say like it is what it is here. Like we got to learn to love our little rink and our fans. And yeah, it's it can take some time, but that's our speech here. Like we can't dwell on that we don't have a brand new facility. So it is we got to make the best of it and make it hard to play against. But our fans are incredible. We're growing every year. We're getting more and more fans every year, and when the building's packed though, it's so loud. It's so hard to play. And I mean, we've had some 2,500 fans in there, man. Like you can't even coach. You're screaming. Like it's wild, absolutely wild. Like it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's very similar to Cardiff.
Yeah, and it's just like how it was. And
Yeah,
no, like I the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast though was because of, I guess, your former players, what they say of you. Um, I had coaches I don't want to call and have on.
mhm,
I have coaches I do, but I enjoy that there's a guy that gets the game, gets the way it used to be, gets the way it is now, and understands players and what they need. And like, you know what? For a team to come together, sometimes beers need to be involved, right?
yeah. I don't think we're past there yet. That's still a thing. I mean, every player now,
It's
obviously,
still a thing.
there's so much more. There's so much more information about fitness and health, and everybody's doing their thing. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, if your team doesn't go out and your team doesn't get out and run the green lights as fast as hard as they can when a coach gives it to you and enjoy the city, like we always tell our guys, get out and enjoy the city. Like I mean, I'm that coach that always talks about like, hey, like in the worst you could imagine, the worst fucking day possible playing this fucking beautiful game is gonna trump the best day you're gonna have working 9 to 5. Like the worst fucking day possible. You're showing up, your coach is pissed off, you think you're gonna get bag skate, your back check drill, that when you look back you will miss that till you'll miss that feeling of when you're done. You'll miss that feeling of like we're over that hurdle, we're onto the net. Like you guys can't. Like I mean, I got mad at my guys today because they fucking up drills and we didn't have a good weekend. And I don't bag skate. I'm not a big believer in bag skating. I never have. I don't think in 11 plus years I've never fucking bag skated.
Yeah, just skate for.
We'll throw in drills and we'll throw in like you'll throw in
It'll be
some.
conditioning, but you can use
Yeah,
both.
we'll throw in some hidden drills, but today, I mean, we didn't have it, and fuck the first 2 drills, the boys aren't dialed in. After like a 40, after a long video session and talking, so I get them on the line and I do a couple sprints, and then we go back to the drill. But then I was like, but then it was so quiet, and you're like, you call them back in, and you're like, what fucking quiet about? Like, what are you guys fucking like? Like my 4-year-old just got yelled at and put herself in the corner, like fucking like
Yeah,
get it.
like
Okay, you got yelled at.
you're at practice. You're getting paid to
Yeah,
be here, and
snap the fuck a little harder.
you're with 25 other like-minded gentlemen,
Yeah. So
and
I
there's
got
not many times in your life that you're going to be around 25 hockey dudes when you're done hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
That's what I
food
said,
for
I'm like,
thought, active players. When
yeah,
it's over, and you don't just show up and hang out with 25 dudes every day. Just an
yeah.
idea.
I said like for every fucking second we're here, we had it taken away for 18 months. I'm thinking like you get yelled at. The coach is yelling at the group in general, not individuals. And then you all just quiet down like oh like little. I know I got so fucking mad. I was more mad that they did that. So I'm
Yeah.
like where's the fucking swagger? Like we got to
Yeah.
get yeah,
Pump your chest out a bit and say, yeah,
exactly,
we're
and then
we're
snap it
here. Yeah,
around and
we're
call
here.
for it a
Let's
little
go have some
louder,
fun.
and call for a little louder, shoot a little harder, stop. You know what I mean? And then boom, and you just find like now guys react to that, right? Guys are like, oh yeah, yeah, and they're just like as soon as they kind of like breathe, then you get the better of them. But it's a different breed now. Like they're just there's a lot of guys are hard on themselves too. I find
Well,
back
and
in
they think it's all so important, right? And
yeah, yeah, every
I guess
play,
it's
every
maybe
play.
wasn't as fun when they were kids, and they think it's been serious forever. But no,
Yeah.
when you talk about that practice and what it's like, it brought back a memory I've never really talked about, and I'll just say this now was Lordo. Because when I go over for Wally night and I have no idea why they're doing it for me and it doesn't make any sense, um, Lordo told me that he would still tell his team about like me in practice was that when you would do like you get two nets in the corner and it's just a battle drill, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just guys battling. But like I would make it fun and I'd be like, let's get some animosity in this bitch, and I'd yell it at everybody, and then I'd start laying guys out, right? Like in the middle of a corner, and then all of a sudden everybody's having fun playing hockey again, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's just like sometimes you got to cut that tension, right, and just be like, hey, like we're playing a kid's game here,
You got to
you know.
jump out of the closet naked every once in a while, spray paint
Exactly. That's
different
maybe what we
colors.
needed. I think that's what we needed today. But anyways, yeah. So yeah,
Not on practice days, buddy. That's a game day.
the psychology now is a little different, but at the end of the day, it all goes back to the old school. Still works, Like I'm still a big believer that you become a team in the bar, and that's what kickstarts you, and winning brings you closer. But
And
you need
that's why
teamwork.
every player I've brought on that played for you raves
Mhm.
about you, and that's not normal. That's why I wanted to have you on.
Yeah,
You seem like a guy I would want to play for. You seem like a guy that brings teams together and understands it kind of the way I look at it. I know not everybody's like us, but
yeah.
honestly, I could see how you were successful as a player and as a coach because of the way you played, and now as you're coaching. I mean, I respect what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, I've been following around. I'm gonna follow now for a lot more, and I'm gonna push some fucking sponsors your way.
Yeah, well, I'm open to them. My wife told me I had one calendar year. She said, if this is still a hobby after a calendar year, you're a fucking idiot. And I said, I understand, but I still want to do it, even if it's for free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but I think I've gotten myself to the point where I could have sponsors. I mean, there's enough
absolutely.
people listening that I just don't like being the guy that calls people and then's like, hey, so I'm talking to people on Zoom in my shed. Do you want
Yeah,
to sponsor me? I'd rather them come to me. So I'm just waiting.
right.
I'm just holding
No,
out.
man. If
I'm a
not,
holdout.
just go buy a bunch of beer and just be like, yeah, I got a contra deal on the booze, so we're making some headway, dear.
I don't even have to buy the beer. This is free.
Ah, I
This is the
like that.
Bayfield Brewing Company. They're the best beers around, and I just went there, got stocked up, so I'm good till I would say post episode 100.
There you go. What do you got now? What's this one?
Solid question. 79.
79. We got 20 more, 21 more.
I got to get 21 more in by January 27th to do 100 and 365 days.
Wow, Jesus,
Yeah, well,
a lot of work. But good on you.
but you know what? It's not work. It's not work when you love it. And I know you know that as a hockey coach and player is work is work when you don't want to do it. When you
Yeah.
want to do it, you'll do it. Like I'm going to do it Sunday morning at 5:30 a.m. and Monday morning at 5:30 a.m., folks, because I love doing this shit and I'll do it for you folks that are the people that I don't even tell there's an episode out and there's already been 50 people listen before I take a shit in the morning. Those are the people I'm doing it for. I'm going to
That's
do
awesome.
one at Sunday morning and Monday morning. So, anyways, I got issues. I know I do. They're healthy issues, though, I think.
They are. No, I love it, man. You got a fan for life here, so I appreciate you having me on.
No, and thank you. And you're still active. I'd love to see you guys do well. And I love
appreciate
your barn. I love the fans there. They were great to me when I came to Manchester, and I wish you guys well. And thank you for being one of the good guys in hockey. And that's
bet,
why you get
man.
to come on.
That's why I'm here. Yeah, good to get through things. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man, I'd
Yeah.
play for you any day. And this has been another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Finner and Wally.